Jennifer, I'm going to ask you another question in a roundabout way. Like, so what does a typical intake look like for you for workers' comp? Like, what are you looking for? What information do you need to be able to do it?
Sure. So I usually do, when an appointment, I meet with each of my potential clients personally. I know with COVID, we're doing a lot of over the phone, but the goal is usually to meet in person if possible, so that I can meet them and vice versa, because we are creating a relationship. But during that time, I find out, how the injury occurred, what body parts they're claiming injury to. A lot of times when the injury initially happens, there might be one or two body parts that are, obtained or have the most attention to them because they hurt the most. But for example, I hit my arm and my elbow hurts so bad, but it's radiating down to my hands and I'm feeling numbness in my fingers, right? So stuff like that can happen. So I try to be thorough in terms of all the symptoms that an employee is experiencing, finding out whatever information they have about their employer's workers' comp insurance and where they are with treatment.
So, well, thank you for that. So one of the reasons I selfishly picked you is because I really wanted people to know about workers' comp. Because, like I said, I do get calls and there's a lot of confusion. Is there anything else standard that you want to clarify? Anything you feel like people should be aware of that would be helpful for small businesses or an injured employee?
Sure. Well, especially for the injured worker, a workers' compensation claim is not the norm. I think that the average person doesn't really understand all of the various things that can be offered through workers' comp. And that's where I come in. I try to explain as best I can the various benefits that they're entitled to, the most important being the medical treatment and being able to navigate that. And also the compensation for permanent disability and what that means. A lot of people hear permanent disability and they think, oh, well, I can never work again. And that's not really what that means. That means that, you can go back into the workforce, but perhaps there's a working deficit. And for the employer, I know we talked about how I know that in even meeting with colleagues and whatnot who are themselves self-employed or have employees, they hear workers' comp and it's like, cover your ears, right? But if you really think about it, if you really value your employees, and you want to make sure that they stay with you for a long time, if they got injured on the job, wouldn't you want them to get the medical treatment so they could come back to you and continue to be loyal and working for you? Because my goal is not to take them out of their job. And for most people, they want to get back to their job.
So one final question, just because you mentioned it. So who determines is like a judge or like, is it a trial? Like, how does this, like, what does it look like?
With permanent disability?
Yes. Or for, the settlement that you mentioned, like who decides that? How does that happen?
Sure. Well, that's another reason why choosing the doctor on the medical provider network is so important, because that doctor will make determination as to whether or not you have permanent disability. And if you do, what is that permanent disability? There are some cases where, the other one or both sides can object to what that doctor says and potentially go to a neutral doctor. And then potentially it could go to a trial, but that's kind of the process. A doctor would make that initial determination.